Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz bassist Andrew Schiller. He was born and raised in Pheonix and is on the heels of releasing 2017's Tied Together, Not to the Ground. He's a well-educated cat with plenty of jazz stories and bravado, so get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Andrew, again, thank you for taking a minute out for me today. It's a pleasure.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and start off here to get a kind of a snapshot of what's going on in your world. Your latest album, Tied Together, Not to the Ground, 10-song collection of all kinds of talent, from Frank Carlberg on piano and Alec Harper. There's a lot of action going on this album. Talk to me about how you feel about this album now that you're performing it live and it's out in the public's hands.
It's actually very interesting, and I think it's a bit of a composer's dilemma that I've known a lot of people to have, and the fact is that the time that it's taken to release this album, I've now, have written new material, and so finally getting to perform all the stuff from the album with the group and debut all this material is actually kind of a weird experience for me, because I'm almost tempted to just keep moving on instead of, sharing this music that actually nobody apart from, the band and a few people close to me have even heard yet. So it's kind of a constant reminder to kind of, pump the brakes a little bit and really marinate on this record, because I'm proud of the work that is on it, and I think everyone sounds good, and I think it was a really good snapshot of what was going on at that time. But to perform it, we had our CD release concert about 2 weeks ago here in Brooklyn, and that was just like a really fantastic experience. It was kind of digging out these charts again and dusting them off, and yeah, it was still really good, really fresh, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying having it out and sharing it with people and getting some feedback here and there. But it's been nice.
So you live in Brooklyn now, but you grew up in Pheonix. And I want to ask you this: how did you get so involved with jazz, and what were some of the early jazz albums that got you going?
Well, I was growing up in Pheonix, and I really started kind of getting into jazz in high school. And this was after I'd picked up the electric bass and was mostly doing rock, or kind of this math rock, punk kind of music during my early teen years, and then started getting into jazz through, I want to say it was Dave Holland. And I think a lot of that was, his music was really complex and still had this kind of rock music element to it. This kind of like riff-based ostinatos that I really connected with at the time. Maybe that quintet from the early 2000s, late 90s with Chris Potter and them. But yeah, that was, I think, kind of the introduction to me into, I really want to study improvised music in this kind of way. And so then also I began checking out other bands that were maybe jazz improvisation based, but still had this kind of element of music that I was already playing, groups like Kneebody and the Bad Plus. And then, as I got older, I started taking maybe lessons more seriously, or just kind of different crop of teachers. I went to Arizona State University for my undergraduate. And then I kind of had teachers who opened my eyes into, actually looking a little bit further back than contemporary music and real, actual jazz, or straight ahead jazz, the classic kind of stuff. And then, this opened a whole different world to me, and I was able to then backtrack and kind of come full circle.
Why was it the double bass, or the bass, I should say more specifically, that really got you going? Of all the instruments, why was it that?
My introduction to the electric bass actually happened when I was just a kid, and I had these friends who had a rock band who basically needed a bassist. And I said, well, that doesn't look too hard. I'll pick it up. And so then just fell in love with the electric bass, and And it was through this kind of transformation, once I started listening to more jazz music, I kind of realized that, really connected with the sound of the double bass. The switch was difficult, but it wasn't learning something completely new. But yeah, for whatever reason, that frequency, that the role that it has in the ensemble, I just always have kind of connected with. It lets you dictate a lot of things happening in the music. Yeah, I don't know. I've always just felt a match with my personality.
Right on. So of all the teachers that you've had, from high school to Arizona State and all of the education that you've had, do you have any advice from a teacher that really sticks with you to this day that resonates very well?
I feel like I've gotten a lot of good advice over the years, and I'm going to overlook some people here just off the top of my head. But one thing that I've been coming back to recently was I was at New England Conservatory for my master's degree and was working with Ralph Alessi when he first got there. He would encourage me to bring in compositions to our lesson. He would talk about the importance of not necessarily over-composing, not limiting the piece to just written material, but to let, really write music that allows the people you're playing with to demonstrate their voice, to have kind of impact on the music. And it might not always, yield the composition that you envisioned, but there's also a good chance that it could be something so much, more interesting or to take it in a totally direction than you had expected. And so that's something I'm constantly kind of telling myself when I sit down to write, to not overdo it. Give the band enough material that will let them sound like themselves on this music, I guess.
In a very generic sense here, why do you love jazz?
I like that it has so many different branches, so many different niches, and you can love jazz and you can also mix it with any other influence. It's still almost always a really valid form of music that's interesting and colorful. So I just feel that there are so many directions one can go and still fall under the umbrella term jazz, which is great for someone of a lot of interest like myself. I'm really into contemporary classical music, really into rock music, Javanese gamelan music. So I feel like I can take elements from all of these things and still put it with my own music, and for whatever reason, it's still, it's considered jazz. Something about that is just really special. I don't think that's always the case in other types of music.
No, I agree, absolutely. What are some of the best live jazz shows that you've seen that have left a real imprint on you?
Okay, to think about this for just a second. I saw Tim Burns' Snake Oil a while back, and that was a group that I've always really enjoyed listening to, and a group that I'm always very amazed by. And I got to see them here in Brooklyn a few months back, and just the way that they set things up compositionally and their way of improvising and integrating improvisation into their own playing, it's so seamless the way they go from composed material into improvisation. And that was a very complete performance as well. And it's clearly, they're a group that plays together quite a bit. And so there was just a lot of musical trust, a lot of going into the unknown together and always kind of coming out in a really cohesive and interesting way.
So let's say we talk in 10 years from now. What are you going to want to tell me is going on? You've just released a new album. You have another one in the works. You're a busy guy. What do you want to see happen?
I don't know. I think more of that, more albums. I'm always interested in different configurations, different ensembles. So I would like to start up, something with a small jazz combo and a string quartet, or even a larger ensemble. But also, love to focus more on my sideman work. I really love playing other people's music and, doing my best to contribute to their groups, to their sound. So, I don't know, I think just expanding what's already kind of going on.
Right on. Let me ask you this. Of everyone that knows you, your family, your friends, your fans, everyone has a perception of you. What is your perception of yourself? Who do you think you are when you get up and face the world?
I think that's a answer that I've kind of been searching for, for quite some time, and it's constantly shifting depending on I guess how I'm feeling that day, what's going on in my life, and that's a lot of I think what drives me to write and play is this sort of road to self-discovery and just kind of using these, I guess, songs, these performances, whatever, as just different chapters, different pages, like journal logs, I guess. But to me, I don't know, I try to spread some sort of joy, warmth, or at least some thought-provoking imagery in my music and in my conversation as well. But beyond that, I guess I'm not really sure.
That's good. That's a good answer right there. I like that. Andrew, thank you for taking some time out for me today to talk about the new album, about your life and music, and hopefully we'll run into each other at some point down the road.
Of course. Thanks so much for the call.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, Phoenix, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Andrew for his time, honesty, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.